Los Angeles, California, March 1953. Inside the executive offices of 20th Century Fox, two of the most famous women in the world sat side by side. Marilyn Monroe, Jane Russell, both stars of the most anticipated film of the year, both worth millions to the studio. But only one of them was being paid like it. The men in suits thought they had all the power. They thought wrong. What happened next would shake Hollywood to its core and expose the ugly truth about how the Dream Factory really operated. This is a story about greed, betrayal, and two women who refused to be broken. Here is the story. The year is 1953, and Hollywood is a golden machine. The studios own everything: the actors, the directors, the dreams themselves. And at the center of it all sits 20th Century Fox, one of the most powerful empires in entertainment history. The lot is massive. Sound stages stretch for acres. The commissary is filled with stars eating lunch, pretending they don't see the photographers lurking outside. Everything smells like possibility and cigarettes. But behind the glamour, there's something rotten. In the boardrooms and offices, men in expensive suits make decisions about people's lives. They decide who becomes a star, who gets paid, who gets destroyed. And in 1953, they're making a bet, a big one. They're producing Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, a Technicolor musical comedy that will cost over $2 million to make. It's based on a hit Broadway show. The songs are catchy. The script is clever. But the real gamble isn't the budget. It's the casting. Marilyn Monroe is 26 years old. She's been clawing her way up for years, taking bit parts, enduring the wandering hands of executives, sleeping on couches, going hungry. But now she's finally breaking through. Her last few films made money, real money. The studio knows she's valuable, but they're paying her like she's still nobody. Her contract? $1,500 per week. For a woman who's about to become the biggest star on planet Earth, it's an insult. And then there's Jane Russell. She's 31. She's been a star longer than Marilyn. Her breakout role in The Outlaw made her a sensation over a decade ago. She's stunning, talented, and she has something Marilyn doesn't have yet: negotiating power. Jane isn't under the same suffocating studio contract. She's an independent operator. Howard Hughes himself launched her career, and she learned early how to play the game. For Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Jane Russell is being paid $200,000. Let that sink in. Marilyn Monroe, the woman whose face will be on every poster, whose name will sell every ticket, is making $1,500 a week. Jane Russell is making $200,000 for the same film. The Fox executives think this is normal. This is how it works. You pay the contract players what the contract says. You pay the freelancers what their agents demand. It's business, cold, calculated, efficient. But they made one critical miscalculation. They assumed these two women wouldn't talk to each other. They assumed competition and jealousy would keep them apart. They assumed that Marilyn would be too scared to speak up, and that Jane wouldn't care about anyone but herself. They were wrong on every single count. The first day of rehearsals is tense. Marilyn walks onto the Fox lot with her stomach in knots. She knows what they're paying her. She knows what they're paying Jane, and she's terrified that Jane will look down on her, that she'll see Marilyn as the cheap girl, the second-rate talent who doesn't deserve to share the screen. But when Marilyn meets Jane Russell for the first time, something unexpected happens. Jane smiles, a real smile, warm, genuine. She extends her hand and says, "I've been looking forward to meeting you." And Marilyn realizes in that moment that Jane isn't her enemy. The studio wants them to be rivals. The press wants them to hate each other. But Jane sees through the game. She's been in this town long enough to know exactly how it's played. They start talking, not about the script or the choreography, about the contracts, about the money. Jane doesn't dance around it. She tells Marilyn straight, "I'm making 200,000 for this picture." Marilyn's face goes pale. She already knew, but hearing it out loud makes it worse. Jane sees the hurt in her eyes and says, "And that's wrong. You're the reason people are buying tickets. You should be making more than me." Marilyn nearly cries, because in Hollywood, nobody says things like that. Nobody admits the system is rigged. Nobody helps the girl who's getting screwed. But Jane Russell isn't like the others. She's tougher. She's smarter. And she's got a sense of justice that doesn't compute in a town built on exploitation. Quick question: have you ever had a secret that was eating you alive? Let us know in the comments. The rehearsals begin, and the two women become inseparable. On set, they're electric together. The chemistry is undeniable. Marilyn plays Lorelei, the gold-digging blonde who sings "Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend." Jane plays Dorothy, the wisecracking brunette who keeps Lorelei out of trouble. The musical numbers are spectacular. The costumes are dazzling. Director Howard Hawks knows he's got something special. But behind the scenes, Marilyn is unraveling. Every day, she shows up knowing she's worth millions to the studio and being paid like she's expendable. The anxiety builds. She starts showing up late. She forgets her lines. The tabloids start whispering that she's difficult, unreliable, a diva. But Jane sees the truth. Marilyn isn't a diva. She's being crushed under the weight of a system designed to break her. And Jane decides to do something about it. One night, after a brutal 14-hour shooting day, Jane pulls Marilyn aside. They sit in Jane's dressing room, smoking cigarettes, exhausted. And Jane says, "We need to fight back." Marilyn looks at her like she's crazy. "Fight back? Against the studio? They'll destroy me." Jane leans forward. "They're already destroying you. The difference is, if we fight together, we might actually win." The plan is simple, dangerous, and completely unprecedented. They're going to refuse to promote the film unless Fox renegotiates Marilyn's contract. No premieres, no interviews, no photo shoots. Jane, the woman who's already been paid, is willing to risk her reputation to stand up for Marilyn, because she knows it's not just about the money. It's about respect. It's about dignity. It's about telling the men in power that they don't own you no matter what the contract says. But going to war with 20th Century Fox is like going to war with God. The meeting is set for a cold morning in March. Studio head Darryl F. Zanuck sits behind his massive desk, smoking a cigar that costs more than most people make in a week. He's a legend in Hollywood, a kingmaker, the man who built Fox into an empire. And he's not used to being challenged, especially not by actresses. Marilyn and Jane walk in together. The room is silent. You can feel the power imbalance. Zanuck has an army of lawyers, executives, and accountants behind him. Marilyn and Jane have each other. That's it. Zanuck doesn't stand up. He doesn't shake their hands. He just stares at them with cold, calculating eyes and says, "I hear you ladies have some concerns." Jane speaks first. Her voice is calm, steady. Marilyn is being paid $1,500 a week for a film that's going to make you $30 million. That's not a concern. That's theft. The room goes ice cold. Zanuck's face doesn't change. He takes a long drag from his cigar and says, "Miss Monroe signed a contract. We're honoring that contract. If she has a problem with it, she should have negotiated better." Marilyn feels her throat tighten. She wants to scream. She wants to cry. But Jane reaches over and squeezes her hand, a silent reminder. You're not alone. Jane leans forward. "Then let me make this simple. If you don't renegotiate her deal, I won't do a single piece of promotion for this film. No premieres, no press, nothing. And we both know what happens to a picture when the stars refuse to sell it." Zanuck laughs. actually laughs. You think you can threaten me? I made you, Miss Russell. I can destroy you just as easily. Jane doesn't blink. Try. The silence that follows is suffocating because Zanuck realizes something in that moment. He realizes that Jane Russell isn't bluffing. She's not afraid of him. She's not afraid of being blacklisted or losing roles or having her career ruined. She's willing to burn it all down for a principle. And that terrifies him. Because people who aren't afraid can't be controlled. But Zanuck isn't done. He turns to Marilyn. And what about you, sweetheart? You willing to throw away your career for this? Marilyn's hands are shaking. Her voice is barely a whisper. But she says the words, yes, one word. But it changes everything. Zanuck stares at her. He sees the fear in her eyes, but he also sees something else. Defiance, strength, the refusal to be broken. And he knows in that moment that he's lost. He stubs out his cigar. Get out of my office. They leave. Not sure if they've won or lost, not sure if they've just committed career suicide. And then, 2 days later, the call comes. Fox agrees to renegotiate. Not the full amount Marilyn deserves, not even close. But it's more than she had. It's a victory, a small one. But in Hollywood, small victories are revolutions. The film is released in July 1953. It's a phenomenon. Lines around the block. Record-breaking box office. Marilyn Monroe becomes the biggest star in the world overnight. Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend becomes iconic. The image of Marilyn in that pink dress, dripping in diamonds, will outlive everyone in that boardroom. And Jane Russell? She becomes a legend for a different reason. Not for her beauty or her talent, though she has both, but for her loyalty. For standing up when it would have been easier to stay silent. But here's what you don't know. Here's what was hidden for decades. After Gentlemen Prefer Blondes became a smash hit, Marilyn's contract was renegotiated again and again. Within 2 years, she was making $100,000 per picture. She formed her own production company. She fought for control over her roles, her image, her life. And every step of the way, she credited Jane Russell with teaching her how to fight. But the studio never forgave them. Internal memos discovered years later revealed the studio's fury. Executives called Jane a troublemaker and Marilyn ungrateful. They vowed to make an example of them. And in subtle, insidious ways, they tried. Marilyn was given difficult directors, impossible schedules, scripts designed to humiliate her. Jane found herself blacklisted from certain projects, her phone calls unreturned. But they survived, because they had something the studio executives didn't understand: solidarity, friendship, a bond forged in the ugliest trenches of Hollywood. In 1955, Marilyn wrote Jane a letter. It was never published, never shown to the public. But Jane kept it until the day she died. In it, Marilyn wrote, "You saved my life, not the fake life they show in the magazines. My real life, the part of me that was dying inside. You reminded me I was worth something, and I will never forget that." Jane framed that letter, kept it on her bedside table, and whenever someone asked her about Marilyn, she'd smile and say, she was tougher than anyone gave her credit for. The truth is, Hollywood wanted these women to fail. The system was designed to chew them up and spit them out. But Marilyn and Jane refused to play that game. They stood together. And in doing so, they cracked open a door for every actress who came after them. Marilyn Monroe died in 1962, too young, too tragic. The official story is suicide, but the questions remain. Jane Russell lived until 2011, 89 years old, a full life, and until her final days, she spoke about Marilyn with love and respect. She never betrayed her, never sold her story to the tabloids, never cashed in on the tragedy. Because some things are sacred. The fight for equal pay, didn't end in 1953. It's still happening today. Actresses are still discovering they're being paid a fraction of what their male co-stars make, still being told to be grateful, still being punished for speaking up. But the difference is, now they know it's possible to fight back, because Marilyn and Jane showed them how. So here's my question for you. If you were in their position, would you have had the courage to stand up, knowing it could cost you everything? Let us know in the comments. And remember this, Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a blonde bombshell. She was a warrior, a woman who fought for her worth in a system designed to crush her. And Jane Russell wasn't just a movie star. She was a sister-in-arms who proved that real strength isn't measured in box office numbers. It's measured in loyalty. And unfortunately, they don't make women like Marilyn Monroe and Jane Russell anymore.